I've used the word genius a couple of times with Phil.
Growing up, all my friends knew my dad as the candy man.
Phil's genius and creativity and my dad's enthusiasm blended very nicely together. And early on in the game, we needed every bit of that.
Everybody seemed to be paddling the canoe in the right direction. Although sometimes the canoe went like this, but we were still all going down the same stream.
And here we are, this little candy broker, just trying to make it happen. But we didn't have anything in the bag.
I sat at a desk with a telephone on it. That was it. The phone never rang.
When something bad hit, everybody didn't throw up their hands and say, screw it, let's get out of here. We figured a way to fix it.
Support your people, support your customer, and support your client as best as you can, and you'll be rewarded.
What made them different, really, is that we're still here today.
And I don't see how the heck anybody could build a business like this from the ground up in today's environment. Just not gonna happen.
I don't believe Mueller Yurgae could start all over again right now. I believe that, well, yeah, we could.
Well, maybe this is a good part to say how it all began.
So the story really goes back to Phil, my father, working for Fred Mueller at Brock Candy.
We matched very well. Fred was a great salesman, and he sold so much that they actually moved him to Des Moines so that he wouldn't make as much as he would, but he had the title of being a district manager.
My dad knew a gentleman named Jim Daniels in Chicago for E.J. Brock, and Jim had a partner named Howard Worth. Jim and Howard wanted to have a friendly competitor on their western flank, so they approached my dad. My dad said, I don't even know what a food broker is. And he says, don't worry, you'll make all kinds of money. But my dad said, I need a partner. And that partner was, in his mind, Phil Yurgae, who at the time, I'm gonna say was 27 years old. He was a rock star.
Phil was fantastic. Phil was an entrepreneur from the get-go. If you could sell something and make money on it, and he thought it was a great idea, he would do it.
My dad called Phil on a Sunday, legend has it, and asked Phil if he'd like to start a brokerage company with him. Phil had one son.
I was almost 2 years old and my brother was not born yet. So my dad, being a pretty conservative guy, decided that it really didn't make sense.
He said, I can't do it. He hung up the phone and Rosie asked him,
Who was that on the phone? And he said, Fred Mueller. He asked if I wanted to go into the brokerage business. And I said, what did you say? He said, I said no. And I said, well, you need to go right back to that phone and say yes, because you're 27. If it doesn't work, you're young enough to do something else in your life. So he went back to the phone, said yes.
And with that, Mueller Yurgae was born a couple of days after Chris Yurgae was born, because Chris Yurgae had to be born on the Brock health plan, because Mueller Yurgae had nothing.
It was bare bones. I mean, they were selling stuff out of basically the trunk of their car to start. Very few lines. When they started, they basically took turns on who got paid, and that's basically how they started the business. It was bare bones. And that was back in 1975.
In the 1970s and 1980s, the supply chain was dramatically different than it is today.
Yeah, back then, a lot of brokers running up and down the streets, and a lot more retailers to deal with too. That was another big thing.
There was a lot more distributors out there than there are today, so there was a lot more business to go be had.
Brokerage firms at that time, I think, were really more focused in big cities and really didn't address more of the rural communities, which would be Iowa. So I think it was a great opportunity for Fred and Phil to to start something that was a success in Chicago, here in Iowa.
But it was rather fragmented, had lots of customers spread out all over the states, and you basically just drove from customer to customer and sold them product.
My dad and Fred would leave on a Monday and they would come home on a Thursday. They just had dedication to the business. They were
Hungry. They were hungry. I mean, we're commission salespeople, so they were trying to pick up as many lines as they could get, because the more you get, the better off you are.
To say they were lean years, we were kind of overpromised and underdelivered when it came to support from Worth Daniels. We were expecting to get all these lovely lines to represent, and I think only 1 or 2 actually came in.
They invested a little bit, they were partners, but then it wasn't too long before we bought them out of their share of the business, and Phil and Fred just continued on.
So it was a lot of survival mode.
We knew we had something. As far as opportunity to sell it, we had to be creative. And I don't think there was a more creative group of people assembled, in the industry.
So there were really, 7 of them that really kind of ran the business for the first years through the late 70s. Fred and Phil and Tom and Dan and Bob, it was the 5 of them. And then Dolores and my mother, Rosemary, they supported, obviously, those guys as they were out selling.
Early on, the challenges were developing a brand and breaking the stereotype of you're just a small candy broker. Those guys they just sell candy.
People like to buy from people that they are familiar with.
You're kind of focused on just candy. Now you've got an opportunity to sell other things. People really didn't know who they were outside the candy realm, so reputation. Who are these people?
I would watch Phil every Wednesday morning get ready to go to Hy-Vee at Sheraton, and he never sold anything. And I would say to him, how can you do this? How can you just keep going back there? And they keep saying no. And he said, that's sales, Rosie. You got to keep doing it.
It took my dad over a year or maybe even 2 years to even sell Hy-Vee, the first thing we ever sold them. So for us, I think it was more of having the right brands to sell to the retailers, and what we had originally was challenging. Probably one of the biggest changes in our business was when we hired our first retail person, Marilyn O'Brien, in 1981.
Marilyn evolved into our longest tenured retail salesperson, and she just recently retired after 43 years. Marilyn was extraordinary, so she was pivotal.
I think that's what really started to set us apart as a sales agency or as a broker, was our ability to go out and call on retail and actually go to the stores rather than going to the headquarters or the wholesale location of our retailers to sell them goods, and then just expect that they would make it onto the shelf. When we hired Marilyn, it was the first time that we actually sent someone from our company into a retail store to actually do work at the shelf. So I think that really was the beginning of what really sets us apart.
So I would say if Dolores was here today, she would have been the one that said the phone started to ring, and it happened. So I applaud all of these guys who can go in there day in and day out and hear the word no. It eventually becomes a yes.
So the first companies that we represented, like Switzer Licorice and CD Candy, I was surprised. I mean, I presented to the buyer, not expecting them to buy, hoping they would, and they did, which was awesome. Our reputation early on helped us get items listed and move the business forward.
When the Velements brand came out, that was a big deal for us, right? It was probably one of the first brands that our customers actually wanted from us. Rather than us trying to sell stuff they didn't need, this was something that they needed.
But what they did is they advertised. And it was our first line of product that had any kind of backing to it to help sell it.
And then from there, not too long after, we started to sell Starburst and Skittles, which was part of Mars. So we sold that brand for a number of years in the 80s, and that really helped us grow as well.
Our challenge was we could try to expand our brand outside of this little candy broker thing organically, or we could do it through acquisition. And there's only one example of us doing it organically, and that was Malt-O-Meal cereals.
And it wasn't cereal, it was actually popcorn balls that we sold for them for the first few years.
So they hired us for that. And then beyond that, they came out with their cereals in a bag and became instantly popular.
It kind of put us on the map as far as center store grocery, outside of the candy and snack aisle.
They became a big piece of our growth in the company. And that experience, we hired more people. And the more people we hired, the better our coverage was, the more people that were attracted to Mueller Yurgae.
We get a big line like that, that just kind of snowballs too. Oh, wait a minute, people are with these guys, they must be pretty decent. You get more opportunities to knock on your door.
Probably about 4 or 5 years after we started, we decided that we could get some significant growth if we bought another small broker and added his lines to our lines. And we did that with a company over in Omaha.
Well, Don had a small portfolio, but one of the items in that portfolio was Fisher Nut. That wasn't candy. We used to celebrate items like Barkeeper's Friend. Wow, it's not candy. We must be a food broker, and we really weren't at the time. But we learned through Don Rice and that acquisition and the coaching and counseling of Tom Allers how to approach and how to structure an acquisition or a merger. And it was genius.
If you look at our little timeline of acquisitions, it's impressive.
I think our biggest acquisition was in 2001 that we brought over August Tomsky and George Tracy.
They had all these grocery clients with no place to go. We had all this infrastructure in place with no grocery brands. When that thing evolved, that shifted our image in the industry from this little candy broker to, hey, these guys might be a player.
So anyway, George came in, brought some very, very significant grocery lines, very good reputation grocery lines into the company. So grocery was our key, and we had two of the most loyal customers that you can get in Fairway and Hy-Vee, and eventually AWG.
All of a sudden we're starting to get credibility on the street that, hey, Mueller Yurgae is a power to be now. They have more than just candy. So that just started a domino effect, really, where we got a lot of people calling that we had known in the business that came back to us and said, hey, you know what, we're gonna give you guys a shot. One of the biggest pivotal moments is we picked up Tone Spices about a year in. It was, in fact, our #1 line that we picked up, and we just kind of grew from there. We kept adding people at retail. And early 2000s, we picked up a private label broker in Iowa, Mick Wynn, LMA Sales. That really got us credibility with Fairway. That got us into where we could do the cross-dock program with Fairway. It got us into private label, which is a real big piece of our business to this day.
You know, when I started back in 2002, we had just picked up Jack Link's. And for me, that's what really set us onto a growth trajectory. And soon after that came 5 Hour Energy.
We acquired a broker in Kansas City about 10 years ago called RSI, big specialty food broker.
And that made us a real player in the general merchandise, organic, natural segment.
You know, I think it doubled the number of employees we have. I would say it added, 35% to our overall revenue of our business. So that acquisition really allowed us to expand an already successful business at Hy-Vee and Fairway to a third customer, AWG.
We gained a tremendous amount of quality people. RSI had a great team, and they were good people, and I think we were lucky to be the ones that they chose to partner up with, and I think it was because of the family environment that we had, and the people that sold RSI to us were comfortable that their employees were going to be taken care of.
Later on, we did get into the non-foods business, part of grocery. So I mean, between Chris and Kent, we built a non-foods department that's pretty strong to this day and was a huge help when we did the Fairway thing.
I think every time we switched offices, we took the next step forward.
First office space was in 1975. I wasn't there, but I remember visiting. And what I remember most about it is a flight of stairs.
Every day I had to walk up those damn steps. And the worst of it was we represented a company called Hinckley & Schmidt, was a water company. And so I'm carrying up 4-gallon cases of water up to our sample room and then having to carry them back down to go out and sell something.
That's the first office. Second office is when I got in the game, and that was just east on University Avenue.
For me, probably the most memorable move was when we moved to 7932 University Avenue. That was when our business really started to take off. And it wasn't too long after that we started Diversified Distributing, which is the distribution arm of our business, which is still present today in our business. And we started that out of a trailer, a 53-foot trailer.
That was our first warehouse, was a semi-trailer from Highland Potato Chip Company. It's still along the bike trail in Clive. When I go by it, I laugh. But what Phil did, he had the vision to say, you know what, we can get in the distributing business as well, not just be singly focused on the brokerage side, so diversify ourselves.
As I look back trying to identify some of the most critical decisions we made for our success, one of them was the genius of Phil Yurgae creating Diversified Distributing. That resulted in our need for some warehousing space.
We grew out of that, and our warehouse business continued to expand and grow, and so we needed more space.
Then we moved to 8033 Swanson. If you see a pattern here, we never left University Avenue for whatever reason.
That place was huge compared to the other place. Plus it gave us a freestanding building, and it let the trade know that we were for real. That we had evolved away from, quote, a little unstable candy broker to being a full-time food broker.
For years, while we were renting from other people, we thought about and talked about with our accountant at the time about buying our own building or building our own building. And Tom would always suggest that wasn't a good idea. So around 2002 or 3, we made the decision to build our own building.
That just seemed to be a huge jump. But boy, that sure turned out to be the smartest move we ever did.
As I look back trying to identify some of the most critical decisions we made for our success, that building was up there.
So we built the building in 2004, and when it was just about totally done, Rosie and I went out just to see what the progress was and looked at the space, and we both looked at each other and started crying. We said, look what we've done. Look what's happened because of that wonderful day when Fred called Phil and said, hey, you want to go in the brokerage business? So, I mean, it was a long time coming and very welcome in the business, but it impressed upon us that we've done something pretty special here. And I still believe that to this day, that it's a very special thing that we did. Were there challenges along the way? Absolutely. We had manufacturers who we built their business very considerably in the marketplace, and a year later, as we built their business to double what it was, they fired us because the new sales manager decided he wanted to hire the brokers that he knew and not us.
The biggest problem with the brokerage business overall is the 30-day contract. You can be fired for whatever reason, and you're done in 30 days.
The day that we moved into our new building out in Grimes, Bob Kostomsky came upstairs at the end of our board meeting and said, "Hey guys, I got some bad news."
Tone sold out to a bigger company who was using a national broker. So at that point I thought, I'm going to be in deep trouble, and the board unanimously just said, we're going to be fine, no problem.
When a manufacturer went national, that means we should have cut people. We never did.
So I learned that day that we're a very resilient group, we're very positive, and things are going to work out. And it worked out. We lost that line. We actually got it back later, which is kind of ironic.
We know from the minute we get a brand and it's successful that in all likelihood we're probably not going to represent that brand 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years down the line. And we have to hope that another brand comes along that we can have the same success with. It's one step forward and sometimes feels like 2 steps back.
I always say a door closes and a door opens, and that's always been a good thing for us. We've had many situations where big lines have left our company, and we've always overcome that loss.
We've always been able to weather it, and I think it really goes to kind of how we've diversified over the years and acquired and grown our geography and really spread our risk.
And to look at the different companies we have bought over the years, it's always made us better, it's always made us bigger, and it's always given us more credibility. And it's also expanded our geography too. Because we used to be more, just more Iowa based. Now, as you can see, we're growing out our footprint.
As we saw our customer base shrinking and consolidating, like it does in any industry, okay, we knew we had to follow the customer somewhere.
So we called the world headquarters is in Grimes, northwest side of Des Moines here. We also have offices in Kansas City, a big office for us, Minneapolis, Denver, and then it'll be 4 years on April Fool's Day coming up that we open an office in Milwaukee, of all things.
We have built those offices with the same, go-to-market strategy, but each office is different within the industry. Our Kansas City office focuses on our Grocery South business, which is primarily AWG, which is a grocery wholesaler based out of Kansas City. Our Des Moines office focuses on the C-store and grocery business. Our Denver office focuses on our specialty Vistar business. Minneapolis, there's grocery, there's Target, and then Milwaukee, it's both grocery and convenience business.
People are a big part of our culture, right? I mean, without people, we would not have the business we have today. And I think my dad says it well. Our people are really our customer, and we really need to take care of our people to make sure that our business continues to have success.
It started 50 years ago, with Fred and Phil. And I think that family culture is just very attractive to a lot of people. And over the course of time, we've grown over 230 employees. And I think it's just the reputation that we've been able to build. We've been able to attract hardworking people that are extremely knowledgeable, professional, and the best in the industry. And that has definitely been the key to our success.
It was a really hard thing to figure out that if you treat your people well, they're going to reciprocate and treat you well. And so that we continued with that theme.
And I think when people come, they stay. And I think that's evident by how many folks we have that have been with our company for more than 20 years. We have a wall of over 40 people that have been with us for over 20 years.
When people think of MYA's legacy, I want them to think about how we were truly the best in the industry. And what made us the best was our culture, it was our people, and it was the relationships that we were able to build with our clients and our retailers.
And I hope the company never gets away from the spirit of trying something new and different.
My dad's phrase was never stop growing, personally and professionally. And he never did. And I don't think Mueller Yurgae ever will.
People need to remember Phil and Fred and Bob and Dan and Tom and Rosie and Dolores and what they really brought to this business. They could have easily, thrown in the towel and given up, but, they persisted. And I think if they can do it, we can do it. So I would say that to me is the legacy I would want folks to remember.